Chick Bharat, can we make some noise?
I invite Vivek Agnihotri ji, who is a national award filmmaker, is a great author and a public intellectual onto the stage.
Namaste, Vivek ji. Very happy to have you here. I was having a conversation with Vivek ji on the way, and I asked him that is he expecting a very formal, rigid introduction? Because I mean, most of us know who he is, right? Cheer. Okay. So most of us know who you are. In his introduction, I want to tell you something that is probably something only I know because it's personal to me. In 2018, Vivek Agnihotri ji had come to Chennai for his book launch, which is called Urban Naxals. And at that time, I had not started Blue Whistle yet, and I was looking for answers, bouncing too many balls in the air, and I attended it. I really liked it, and bought a copy, which I was not planning to probably because it was 400 rupees, and I did not have a lot of money. And I then asked Vivek Agnihotri ji in the question answer session. I was very agitated. I asked him that a lot of the Hindu right wingers, Hindu right wing influencers tell us that youth are the stars and that we are to take the Hindu ideology forward and restore dharma in the society. So I asked him, Vivek ji, where is the funding? I have a lot of ideas, but I don't have the money. And how do we sort of get connected? Because the left funds a lot of fantastic ideas. And Vivek ji replied to me with a story. That was a story of Sheikh Chili. He said once he lost the key, and but he was looking for the key only in a place where there was light. And he said, what if the key was not lost in the light? What if the key was lost somewhere in the darkness? So he said, don't look for the key in light, look for it in other places as well, and you will find what you need. And I did many years later, but I did, and here we are today. So in his introduction, I want to tell you that. And I want to slip in one last thing, which is you may not find the real Vivek Agnihotri ji in his movies, on his Twitter or anywhere else, but you will find him in his book Urban Naxals. That book, in my opinion, has been written with so much heart, and it has so many anecdotes, and I made a whole lot of notes about it because it's so well researched, and I'm so glad I read it. And yes, so that's an introduction. Agnihotri ji, I will hand over the mic to you now, and you know the crowd, I've already briefed you about it.
हरिओम नमस्कार क्षमा चाहता हूँ थोड़ा 15-20 मिनट लेट हो गया सीधे बम्बई से आ रहा था लोनावाला में थोड़ा ट्रैफिक जैम था ट्रैफिक जैम तो हम लोग पिछले 75 साल से झेल रहे हैं तो ट्रैफिक जैम की हमें आदत है Anyway, so I am told that there are a lot of people who do not understand Hindi, so for your benefit, I'll speak in the most common language, English. Language is our handicap in this country, but that's the beauty of Bharat, that we are the only society in the entire world which can express itself in not just 20, 30, 40, but thousands of different languages and dialects. And despite that, we are one. And I think this is something amazing about Bharat. So I think rather than talking about things which I know, I would rather share with you what I have done and what I feel. Because this world is full of people who say we will do this, we will do that. But I think time has come for Bharat now to act. For a very long time, we have heard people what we should be. It's time that we become. And I think that's what great saints and great people like Chinmaya ji has also expected us to act. About 10, 12 years ago, or let me begin when I was young like you. I mean, don't mind it. A lot of people may not like to hear this, but honestly, Bharat was full of pessimism. We were a defeated society. We had no choices, we had no options, and there was no sign of a great future. The only ambition typically an Indian middle class family had was how to somehow educate their children, either bribe and get them a job, make them an IS officer so that they can take bribes and become rich, or send them outside India. And it is true, you may not believe it, but when I was your age, the matrimonial ads in the newspapers used to say IS officer or a government officer, and it simply meant that he would make lots of money out of corruption. Today's youth is not like that. All of you are looking to make this country a good country, an honest country. I also had that dream. But like my generation, I also left India, I went to USA. And when Rajiv Gandhi ji became Prime Minister, he promised a new modern India. And so I gave up my green card and came back to India with a dream that we will build a new India. That never happened. Then came Shri VP Singh ji with a lot of promise of building a new India, taking India out of corruption. He was supposed to be an honest man. So I joined that in front of All India Institute of Medical Science in Delhi when that Mandal Commission agitation was going on. I remember I was also one of them. But again, that dream also shattered. Nothing happened. And then came consecutively lots of different governments, and then came, for 10 years, there was Congress. I gave hope. But in 2010 sometime, I said, why am I dependent on governments? Why am I dependent on political leadership to take this country forward? What is it that I want? Do I want a proud Bharat where every young person feels proud of our heritage, of our greatest, of the civilization, of our culture, and the youth of this country decides to make this country an innovation hub and hub of creativity, so that instead of us going outside India, people from outside come back to Bharat. With this dream, I resigned from a corporation or a mindset called Bollywood. In 2010, I said, I am going to tell all those uncomfortable stories about Bharat, which nobody has told, and therefore, as a storyteller, what if first I tell people where the problem lies? And the first thing I realized, the problem lies with our education system. This education system subconsciously makes you feel bad about yourself. Because the kind of dreams and aspirations it creates, the kind of iconic narrative it creates in front of you, belongs outside of India. Recently, I was in Bengal, and when I started listing the great people who were born out of Bengal, you won't believe me, even 50, 60-year-old Bengalis were surprised. Because they were never told about their own past and heritage and how Bengal brought a cultural renaissance in this country. And people who do not know the great freedom movement which we talk about, Bengal has made a great contribution, not only in terms of fighting the British, but also awakening the youth of that time with great poetry, great writing, great innovations. Bharat has always been a society which innovated. When the world was fighting with each other with swords and violence and capturing geographical lands, before that, Bharat was the only society in the world which basically conquered the mind of humans. We were the first to understand that whatever is manifested in this world is because of our mind, and therefore it is very important to understand the layers of our mind. And greatest of the scholars, who we call Rishi, I think we should call them scientists. That would be the best tribute to them. And they They discovered so many disciplines. People who do not know, do you know the grammar which we talk about? That grammar is our gift to the world. Even today's psychoanalysts do not understand those hidden side of human mind which we understood. And that's why the whole birth of spiritual, the science of spirituality was cultivated, this art of spirituality was cultivated in this land. But the students are not taught. We are the only society which wrote so many granths about how to live. There is no education in the system in the world. They teach you how to go to Mars, but no education system teaches you how to live and how to love. Everybody talks about compassion and empathy. No education system teaches you in a systematic manner how to be compassionate. Welfare, we talk about human rights, we talk about welfare. Name one school or college which teaches you about that. But it was taught in our gurukuls. And in this ashram, I am sure all of you who come here, when you go out of here, you go with a lot of love, learning about the art of living. These are the human qualities. Ultimately, eventually, this is all which matters in your life. Money comes and go, material comes and go. The biggest problem about accumulating wealth is that you also accumulate a misery. If you have read Swami Chinmaya very well, you will understand what I am talking about. But all education systems are teaching you to accumulate wealth and power. And which is why politics is at the center of all conversations. This is why joining corporates is at the center of everything. We are living with so much of baggage. So much of baggage, our mind is not free. Our shoulders are drooping, we are agitated, we have become an outraged society. And that's what I realized. If we have to call ourselves Bharati, a true Hindu, the first thing, the fundamental principle of Hindu thought is Anekantvad, which Jainism is based on. Which means there are as many paths to truth as the number of human beings. There are millions and billions of paths to truth, and all paths are true. Not accepting or negating anybody else's path to truth is violence. This is a Hindu thought. And this is what the world is preaching today. And we lost that. Why we lost that? Because when I was getting educated, when your children are or you are getting educated, nobody is telling you what is truth. Everybody is saying seek truth, but nobody is telling you what is truth. I think the truth is first to understand who you are, where you stand, where you belong. What is it that you are set out to do? And with that intention, I resigned from Bollywood, and my first film was Buddha in a Traffic Jam. We made this film. I'll tell you stories of things which I have done very briefly. Buddha in a Traffic Jam happened because I was teaching in one of the world's best business schools called Indian School of Business. And those students had written a short story and they wanted to make a documentary on that. And the story was, and for which they had got all the credits in their institute, and they were celebrated students because they came out after a lot of research with that story. And the story was that there is an entrepreneur, a big businesswoman, and she goes in her helicopter to a mining center in Bastar, and her helicopter has some technical snag and she has to spend 2-3 days with Naxals. Until that time, she used to hate Naxals, but after she spent 3-4 nights with Naxals, she comes back knowing very well that Naxals are the messiahs of humanity, they are the best people, and she shuts her mind. This was the story. And their professors had given them 10 on 10 for that story. I said, if you want me to help you and mentor it, you have to change the story. Your story cannot be based on what you have been told, the narrative which has been fed in your mind. Not the way you have been brainwashed. You have to go with research. And then we did a lot of research, and reports after reports after reports, we realized that these so-called celebrated Naxals, not anymore, Narrative has changed now. But at that time in 2010, everybody thought that Naxals basically are good people who help people. Nobody had told them the story that how they cut the stomach of people, take the intestine out, and then they celebrate, they dance around it and celebrate. Do you know who they did it with? The president of Congress party in Chhattisgarh. They killed the entire caravan of Congress party, 30, 40 people. Vidya Charan Shukla was part of that. They bomb blast schools, they bomb blast hospitals, roads. They extort money. They take 1,000 rupees from every truck which passes by. They collect 14,000 crores per annum, and you will wonder where this 14,000 crore rupees go. They come to cities. All these media, intellectuals, all those literature festivals and all that circus which used to go on in 2000, 2012, 15, 16, even now, where do you think this fund comes from? At the snap of a finger, thousands and thousands of people sit at Shaheen Bagh or they do farmers' protests. Where do you think this money comes from? This money comes from after extorting these poor Adivasis. And the same thing is happening in Kashmir and Bengal and Kerala now. Money is being extorted from poor people, from transporters, from corporates, from panchayat heads, from teachers, women teachers. Can you believe it? They give 10% of their salaries in these villages. That money goes to help terrorists, it goes to help Naxals. These are India's biggest enemies. And where are they recruited from? And all these young boys and girls are recruited from universities. Who recruits them? Professors. So when I made this film, everybody said, अरे भारत में तो गुरु की इतनी इज्जत करते हैं, आप प्रोफेसर के अगेंस्ट बना रहे हैं. But as luck had it, I am blessed by Saraswati. By the time film came, Professor Sai Baba was caught for Naxalism and he is still behind the bars. And one after another, so many professors and assistant professors all over India. Sai Baba is a celebrated name, so you know. But I have a list of so many teachers and professors who have been brainwashing young minds and converting them, making them do activities which are against India, against Bharat. And how do they do it? The first thing they do, they realize that the young people of India come from middle class families, from small families. Everybody is grown up in scarcity. And they take advantage of this scarcity mindset. First, they make you feel bad that you are a Hindu. That's why you will see these days it's become fashionable that a lot of people are not even keeping their last names in universities and colleges because they are embarrassed. Because when they go, they are being tortured, they are being teased for that. Cutting yourself off from your background, from your heritage, from your culture, actually is a very fashionable thing in some of the most modern universities in India. So when we made Buddha in a Traffic Jam, we were not allowed to tell that story. But I went and fought. I went university after university after university. And then I wrote a book on that called Urban Naxals. Though it sounds very political, but he has read it. It's actually a book which will make you feel so proud of Bharat. Because I traveled villages to villages, colleges to colleges. And what I understood about Bharat, that when all the civilizations have perished, all the civilizations in the world, why are we the only civilization which has survived? Why? Because if you see, it's because of our liberal, progressive, scientific attitude. We kept evolving with times, we kept adapting with times, but one thing we never left, which is believing in a collective society. Why we have such strong family system? Because we believed that we are all interdependent. Only when we co-grow like a forest, like Himalaya, in Himalaya, no peak grows on its own. There are two peaks which constantly interact with each other geographically. That's how these peaks grow. In forest, no one tree can grow on its own because somewhere at the root level, they are all helping each other, communicating with each other. And now the modern science has proved it beyond doubt that in forest, the only option for trees is to co-grow. Look at most of the world. Okay? See the comparison. There is one side of the world which is like almost most of the world, which believes in individualism, which means I do everything. Whatever happens in this world is because of me, because of the human being. I am at the center of the world. I am an individual. My rights, my money, my car, my family, my wife, my children, my ambition, my goal. Talk to any Indian, anybody who's Bharati from his soul and heart, कहेगा सब ईश्वर की देन है, मेरे माँ बाप का आशीर्वाद है, आपकी कृपा से. तो इसका सबसे अच्छी बात इसमें यह है, when you live in a collective society, आपका आधा बर्डन तो ऐसे ही खत्म हो जाता है. Okay, why should I take responsibility for everything which is happening in this world? There is a war in Ukraine, I am going to solve it. ठीक है ना, ये दुनिया है, ये एक साइकिल है, चक्र है, ये चलता है, सब चीजें होती हैं. I think it's the collective nature. And because of this collective nature, somewhere we realized that everybody has a point of view. Everybody is born with a unique perception and interpretation about the world, and which is why when somebody said, नहीं, विष्णु ऐसे नहीं दिखते थे, तो हमने कहा कैसे दिखते थे? तो उन्होंने बोला ऐसे दिखते थे. हमने कहा कोई बात नहीं, ये विष्णु का रूप आप रख लीजिए. आपको पता है, do you know that, I don't know how many, lot of people talk about Shastra and Puran and Upanishad these days, but do you know the first time in Hindu texts, the first god which is found in Hindu texts is Prajapati. Do you know that? And what is the first spoken words of Prajapati? The god, Ishwar. I'm not talking about Devta. I'm talking about Ishwar, the only one. The first name, the first reference is Prajapati. And what is the first spoken word by God? Who am I? Somebody said that, right? Who am I? Tell me in which society in the world, in which philosophy, in which faith system, you will find a God saying, who am I? So whatever you think about yourself, whatever is your truth, is your seeking of the God. And which is why we are the only society, we are the only thought or faith system which said, Tattvamasi or Aham Brahmasmi, which means you are God. But you are not God just because somebody said Tattvamasi. You are God when you do God-like things. That's why this whole theory of karma, the causation and effect, this theory is coming because when you do God-like acts, then you become God. And मुझसे if somebody asks me, where is God? I say, look at your mother. That is the closest you can go to God. Because that level of tyag and tapasya, you will find only unconditional love is in our mothers. So after that, I started this journey when after Buddha in a traffic jam and urban naxals, then I said, now I am going to make all these films which tell uncomfortable stories about contemporary Bharat, because there are lots of experts who are talking about ancient Bharat and the real true meaning of Bharat. And I said these three, I've said it many times, but I'll repeat it. I said, ये जो हैं तो चार शेर वो हमारे एम्बलम में, पर जो तीन दिखते हैं, जो दिखाए जाते हैं, ये क्या हैं? So I said, what are the core values of Bharatiya society? Whether you read Ramayana or you read Vedanta, you read Upanishad, or you read Chanakya, or even you read the Constitution of India, what are the three most important values we have said make somebody a Bharatiya? So that is number one, truth. Second is Nyaya, justice. Right? And the Mahabharata, all about Nyaya. Nyaya means dharma, the Satya should win, dharma और अधर्म की लड़ाई में धर्म को जीतना चाहिए. And the third thing is what? That is life. Right to life. So as a storyteller, I said instead of preaching, what if we focus on these three issues? And I decided to make a trilogy. The first part was called the Tashkent Files. It was about right to truth. That film was about right to truth. And these three films are my commentary on the modern socio-political structure of this society, that we talk but don't act. Every politician talks about truth. Nobody in 75 years has acted. A democracy which doesn't know the truth of its second prime minister's controversial death has no right to talk about truth. That's why I said a citizen's first right should be right to truth. And I did not just make the film. Every single day I am fighting for it. Your truth might be different, but I am fighting for my truth, which truth I believe is a truth of Bharatiya society. And after that, justice. What is the most tragic and painful thing which has happened in this country? That our own people, from a land of Shankaracharya, land of Rishi Kashyap, land of yoga, land of Ayurveda, land of Natya Shastra, land of all high Hindu thoughts on which this society is dependent, those Pandits, those Hindu fellows, when they were in the most inhuman way thrown out of their own land for 32 years, nobody even dared to tell their story to the world. When I and Pallavi, my wife, when we were researching, when we were traveling all over the world, going and meeting these people, one common thing everybody told us, that this is the first time somebody is asking us what happened to us. And when that film came, now you know rest is the history. Ram Gopal Verma said that the film history of India will be divided in two parts, one before Kashmir Files and one after Kashmir Files. After that, we decided to make a film called The Delhi Files, which is about right to life. It is perhaps going to be one of the most important films ever made in the history of this country. Because when it comes to partition, see, all the problems in this country have their roots. Unless and until you solve the fundamental of the problem, the root of the problem, nothing is going to change. Trust me, everything is going to sound great on social media, but the real problem is never going to be solved. The problem is we have been taught absolutely false history of partition. When I say partition, we have been researching for for a long time. Whoever we speak to, partition, what is the first image which comes to you? People think of Punjab. Am I right? Khalistan, Punjab. You always, because some movie showed about it, everybody spoke about it. Manto wrote about the partition and the pain and agony of people in Punjab. But the entire bunyad, the fundamental, the foundation of partition was Khilafat movement. In 1920, when the Khilafat movement was introduced in India, Gandhiji was the first person to give it a clean chit and approval, an official approval. Ambedkar was against it. Annie Besant was against it. Shri Aurobindo was against it. Every single person who had even single possible emotion for Bharat was against it, except for Gandhiji sitting in Delhi without knowing, he approved it. Nehru said, if Gandhiji has said Khalistan is good, it got to be good. And see the result. And after that, this entire Khilafat movement was nurtured and cultivated in Bengal. If Bengal is suffering today, it's not because of current politics only. It's the mindset of Khilafat. And with Khilafat, what happened? That somewhere we gave legitimate approval to a term called minority. The entire international press today talks about a conflict between majority and minority in India. It's a fake news. It's a false narrative. अगर आप भी इस शब्दों का इस्तेमाल करते हैं, इस मूवमेंट के बाद करना बंद कर दीजिए. The conflict in India is between the largest majority and the second largest majority. You will see in the film, but during direct action days for 7 days. You go today, you immediately after this, first thing you do is go to Google and write direct action day photos. Just see the photos. Millions of Hindu skeletons are lying all over the streets of Calcutta, and these pictures are not taken by any Indian journalist. These are taken by New York Times and Time magazine. See it, please see it, and you'll understand what I'm saying. And there are vultures sitting all over them. They are skeletons. 7 days, nobody even picked up their dead bodies. Then one person called Gopal Patha, who was a butcher, he was called Patha because in Bengal, Bakra is called Patha. And he went to Kali temple. He wasn't a very brave person. It's not, he was a fighter. He went to Kali Mandir, and that's where a priest told him that he said, everybody around me is dying. What does it mean to be a Bharatiya? What does it mean to be a Hindu? Gandhiji is saying, don't attack. Don't fight. What should I do? And that priest gave him prasad from Kali. And he said that your dharma is to save your own people at this moment. And he united all Hindus there. And in 2 days, for 7 days, these Muslims were killing Hindus. In 2 days, the Prime Minister of Bengal, Sawadri, who was the cause of partition of India, he said, there is one community, if they come together, the entire world can't fight them, and they are Hindus. All my life in my school and colleges, I was told, you are a Hindu. तुम यार हम लोग ऐसे ही होते हैं, शांति प्रिय होते हैं. शांति बिना युद्ध के आज तक विश्व में कहीं स्थापित नहीं हुई है. शांति स्थापित करने के लिए सबसे पहले राक्षस का विनाश किया जाता है. जब तक राक्षस एक समाज में जिंदा है, शांति नहीं हो सकती. Then Gandhiji came to Calcutta and he asked all Hindus to surrender their arms, their weapons. Everybody surrendered except for one person, Gopal Patha. If you have seen this film called Gandhi, how many of you have seen Richard Attenborough's Gandhi? Okay, so if you remember, there's a scene in that when Gandhiji goes to Calcutta and Om Puri comes there. And he refuses to give his arm. Then Gandhiji tells him, नहीं, एक हिंदू का धर्म होता है, something like that. नहीं, हम non-violence वाले हैं. और वो Om Puri gives it to him. It's a fake news. It's a fake narrative. Gopal Patha never ever surrendered his arms. Until 4 years ago, I used to believe कि हाँ गांधी जी ने कहा था surrender. Ultimately, that is the truth. It's only after listening to Gopal Patha in his speeches and the BBC commentary and all the historical textbooks, he's told Gandhiji, even if I have used one nail of my finger to save my brothers and sisters, I will not even surrender that nail to you. Because last line suniye, he said, because Kali has told me I am on the path of dharma, you are on the path of appeasement. For 75 years, this country has suffered because of appeasement. Because we have not been able to say the truth. We were made to shut up. This is what I am breaking. But it doesn't mean that I'll always bring bad news to you about tragedies. Recently, while we were suffering from COVID, this is the last story I want to tell you, while we were suffering from COVID, a very big war was waged against India by big pharma lobbies and their agents in India. It is true, there is a lot of things which people do not know. So when we started studying about the vaccine, our next film is called The Vaccine War, which is coming now in next 3-4 months. So we started asking all the young boys and girls in colleges in collaboration with Indian Institute of Management. They conducted this research for us over some 10,000-12,000 students. 99.9% students, when we asked them who made these vaccines, everybody said, guess who made this vaccine? In India. Bharat Biotech and Serum. Just for your information, those are manufacturing and distribution plants. Who made it? No. These are bunch of scientists who were locked in their labs. One lab is here in Pune, National Institute of Virology in Pune. They were locked in the lab for 7 months. And almost all of them were women. And when I went to meet them, when we interviewed them, now we have spent a lot of time, 1.5 years we are working with them. When I looked at them, I said, no, मेरे को वो जो scientists हैं जिन्होंने vaccine बनाई उनसे मिलना है. Because if you look at them, you can't believe these women can ever be scientists. They're such ordinary, normal, common people. Such middle-class people. And if you look at them, I don't want to get into this, it's a very nuanced conversation. Shefali is here, she will understand what I'm saying. See, normally, the modern world, even in India, we have created an image of empowered women as if they are very, they walk in a certain way and they are always, there is a certain image we have created. And anybody who is not very vanity conscious, who's very simple, very humble, somebody who doesn't even care what they're wearing, how they're talking, non-English speaking people, we say they are not empowered, ये तो housewives हैं. और मैं भी जब उनसे मिला तो मुझे भी ऐसा ही लगा कि ये तो हाउसवाइफ टाइप की हैं, ये कैसे बना सकते हैं वैक्सीन. But do you know that one lady scientist, her son, because she couldn't go for 7 months, her son suffered from PTSD, still the psychiatric treatment is going on. The head of NIV here, Dr. Pragya Yadav, who's heading NIV here. And do you know these BSL-4 lab which we have in India, there are only 6 WHO approved BSL-4. BSL-4 is the highest possible lab in bioscience. It's more sensitive than a nuclear bomb plant. Because one virus leaks and we are all done. She is heading it. There are only 6 labs. The Wuhan lab from where the virus leaked is also BSL-4, but that was made in 2017. Our lab was made in 2011. Her daughter developed an eye infection. Because she was making the vaccine inside BSL-4 lab and she couldn't go, her husband is in army, he was posted somewhere else, and she started developing tumor, and she got tumor and she is half blind now. These and most of the women, they were pregnant, some were pregnant, somebody's mother-in-law died, somebody's old father died, they did not attend it. They were going for 2 hours. They will wash their utensils because there were no maid servant. They will cook food, leave it for 6-7 days in the fridge. They will iron clothes, wash clothes, do all those kind of things. And they kept working inside the lab for 7 months. And they ended up making, in the history of this modern world, the world's fastest indigenous vaccine ever. Nobody has told you this story. And therefore, whatever little money we made from Kashmir Files, contrary to the popular belief, I was not the main producer. Z Studios was the main producer. So they are the people who made money, but we got very little chunk. But whatever money we got, anybody in this world, after such a huge success, the biggest blockbuster ever in the history of Indian cinema, anybody would have gone and made bigger film and with stars, or at least I should have made Delhi Files immediately. I know that if I had made that film, would have done more business. But we took that risk. We said this story about our mothers and sisters must be told to the entire world. The greatest success of Bharat. This film is coming soon now in 3-4 months. I guarantee you when you will see it, your heart will be full of gratitude for our mothers. Today, I feel so confident and so optimistic. If this country is moving forward, you don't realize, but there is a huge force of this silent force I call is of our young girls and our mothers and sisters. But they want us to feel bad about it. And therefore we are telling this story. The reason I told you these 3, 4 things is, I am a storyteller. That's what I specialize in. I have used my art, my skill, my specialization to change the narrative in my own way. And it is very important that we not just keep pointing fingers at what is wrong, we also celebrate wherever we are succeeding. You may not be a filmmaker, you may not be a storyteller, politician, maybe you are not a big influencer on social media, but in your own way, whatever is your skill, whatever is your art, I think at this point of time, when we are for the first time at a point from here, we can actually what is it called, escape velocity. We are at a point of escape velocity from where we can go into a new universe and make the world realize the power of oneness, of Tattvamasi. Now the science has also found this particle, God's particle, and now recently, just few weeks ago, they found that the smallest particle in the world has has the same energy and power as the entire cosmos, something with 10,000 years ago our Rishi said. So what the world is discovering today about love, life and welfare, we have written texts after texts thousands of years ago about it. I wish all of you all the best, and I pray to you, it's my humble request, wherever you are, whatever you do, take out 10% of your time and tell the story of greatness of your Ma and Bharat Ma. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The first question that I have for you is if you could share with the youth here about your experiences while trying to release the film Buddha in a Traffic Jam, specifically in universities where you were assaulted, what that felt like and what attack on freedom of expression can actually feel like.
Yeah, but that assault hasn't ended as yet. First it was only on me, now it's on my family also. But I have with God's grace, I have good kids and they understand the value of fighting for your own cause. See, when Buddha in a Traffic Jam came, it was a very radical idea. Nobody was prepared to accept at that time, except for parents and young people who were made to feel inferior in universities and colleges because of the way they are, the kind of values they have. So when we started that journey, then the first attack came from Bollywood itself. By that time, I was sort of part of Bollywood. You won't believe me, our film was selected for Mami, which is supposed to be a very celebrated film festival. And we were in gold category nominated, which is like the 5 best films of that year. But I remember my name was in second or third row. It was Chipka Rehta Hai Naam. So it was in second and third row. But then we were made to sit right at the end. And I remember at that time. And so all those kind of things happened. Then distributors came, last minute they went off. Because this entire art, media, culture industry was dominated or taken over by the left system. And when Indira Gandhi did not have a lot of support and power, so she did a deal with communists. And she said, if you support me, I'll give you whatever you want in return. And do you know, communists, I am an ex-communist and I love them because they are very sharp people. They know how to buy and sell any country better than anybody else in this world. They know how to destroy old cultures very well. So you know what they asked for? They could have asked for finance ministry. They could have asked for defense ministry. They could have asked for any kind of ministry which makes money, but they asked for, guess what? Education. Because somewhere they know that the young minds are the weapons, moving weapons to destroy a culture and society. And that's exactly what has happened with us. So a lot of resistance came from the communist people and all these universities. In JNU, you know what happened. Then in Osmania University, in Law University in Hyderabad, IIT Madras, yeah, IIT Madras, they cancelled. In many events, very often students would come on stage. In one university, they took the mic from me, did not let me speak. So I went out, sat down under a banyan tree, and with 30, 40 students, I spoke to them. But I was determined that I will go on and on and on and on and on, because what they fear, you know what? You know what the enemies fear? Your determination, your conviction. They fear conviction. That's what I realized in this journey, and that's why this book, Urban Excels, I wrote so that young people know the power of conviction. Because once you are convinced and committed, then it's very difficult to stop you. And you have to walk alone. Then Jadavpur University. Then, so after all these physical assaults and everything, film never released properly. But today, it is one of the most viewed films ever on YouTube plus social media. Now it's been taken by Z5. And I didn't know. I didn't know that it is on Z5. Recently, they had their anniversary and they sent me something and they told me this is one of our most viewed films. So a film which after so many years is finding its life and becoming successful, so you can understand the power of an idea behind which your conviction and commitment is there.
Thank you so much, Vivek ji. Now also to transition to a question which is, it is by Swami Chinmaya ji's grace that we have the opportunity to have this conversation with you. So I would like to ask you, what is it about Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda that inspires you the most?
So first, let me tell you, a lot of people may not know, in your life, the most important thing which happens in a human life is your marriage. And I was married in Chinmaya Mission in Bombay. And Swami Tejanand ji se hamare bade ghar jaise rishte the. I am part of your family. That's why I am always available whenever somebody calls me for Chinmaya Mission. When I am sitting here, I am running very high temperature since yesterday, and every bone and muscle of my body is hurting. It's some new kind of flu, but then I had committed, so I said I have to come whatever happens. And मैं इसलिए नहीं आया हूँ कि किसी ने बुलाया था, मैं इसलिए आया क्योंकि मुझे खुद आना था. So I'll see there are lots of things, Swami Chinmayanand ji. I mean, I am nobody to say anything. A lot of people can say lots of things about him. But I have been a student of Vedanta. I am a student, I'm a follower of Advaita. And I started my journey reading Swami Vivekananda. But when I got introduced to Swami Chinmayanand, it brought a different kind of spirituality in my mind. Because it gave me strength to speak the truth as it falls on you. Second thing about Swami Chinmayanand, very few people who are spiritual gurus have actually addressed youth, and not addressed but motivated them, and believed that if Bharat has to stay united, and if we have to become a society which shows light to the world, it has to come from the youth of this country. Swami Vivekananda ji once said, give me 100 committed youth and I'll change the destiny of Bharat. In his lifetime, he did not find 100 committed youth. The second person I heard ever appealing to youth, recently I posted a speech on his birthday just a few days ago, Swami Chinmayanand ji's, was Swamiji. He also said the same thing, how one youth can change the destiny of one nation. So I said, okay, maybe Swami Vivekananda ji and Swami Chinmayanand ji in his lifetime couldn't find 100 people. It has to start with me, so I am one of them. And I committed myself to this cause. And my heart fills to see wherever I go. I was in Calcutta recently for Chinmaya, for G20 program, and it was full of young people. So the way he has motivated this the new generation and the young people, I think that is his single most important contribution to Hindu society. But always remember that if you really want to be a true Hindu, then like Swamiji, it has to begin with Vedanta. Anybody who does not read and understand Hindu philosophy can become a great Hindu, but he can never ever take the cause of Hinduism forward. Because if you want to win your fight with all these Abrahamic ideologies, if you have to win this war with capitalization and the global cultural war, you have to be a very spiritual person. Spirituality does not mean sitting and meditating. If you read between the lines of Swamiji, you cannot be a spiritual sitting and meditating. This spirituality has to reflect in your everyday karma. And that is when you are spiritual. When you are spiritual, you don't have to take a sword in your hand and fight the enemy. Enemy himself or herself withdraws just by looking at your power. So this is what I think.
This is my last question, and then we open it up to the audience. This answer is probably like 15 seconds, which is we are entering the 50th year of Chinmaya Yuva Kendra. So in a very crisp manner, if you could address and say a few words to the youngsters, because these are all people of the Chinmaya family. These are all youngsters of the Chinmaya family.
I am nobody to give you any message. All I can say is what I have learned is Ekla Chalo Re. You know, that's the only thing I have learned. Do not care about what people think about you. Don't care. The day you are convinced you are on path of dharma, the only when your soul says, yes, I am on path of dharma, after that, never look back. Do not take support from anyone. Ekla Chalo Re.
I gave you extra time to think of questions.
So first of all, a very, very big salute to you for pointing us the truth, the actual facts. So, what were the major obstacles that you had to go through before the release of your movie Kashmir Files? It was one of the controversial films, and whenever someone wants to convey the truth, there are a lot of dangers and mostly political threats that they have to cross. So, what message do you have for us youths here?
Okay, so number one, you said use the word controversial. I think you used it because media uses it very often. There was nothing controversial. This is what happened. I showed it. What is controversial in it? So first of all, stop anybody who's fighting for the cause, for our dharma, stop falling into this trap of calling it controversial. That's what they want to do. See, the biggest power the enemy has is to create doubt. Right? In your mind. Never let the doubt come to you. The obstacle is when you do these kind of things, generally people don't believe in you. And obviously the corporate structure in studios and people don't believe in you. But I have learned through experience, if you believe in yourself, okay, if you believe in your dharma, what you're doing is right, and if you walk alone and with conviction, then biggest of the obstacles, ultimately, they make path for you. Third thing is, I've spoken so often about all the practical problems. You can just go and read it. I don't want to waste your time here. But one thing I want to share with you, and something which is very, very tragic. In this country, for so many years, they have been making movies about justifying terrorists or Naxals or the bad people or dacoits, especially terrorists. All these films, Fiza, Fana, Mission Kashmir, Heather and all these, they are all set in 1990, but they don't even utter the word Kashmiri Pandit or Kashmiri Hindu, as if no Hindu existed in Kashmir. And that's why the younger generation, whichever you guys are more aware, but other kinds of schools and colleges where I go, which are more liberal, so-called liberal and leftist places, those students don't even know that Hindus ever lived in Kashmir. They think that it was some Muslim territory which India has illegally occupied. Believe me, that's what they believe. Right? And these films were amplifying that thought process by making all these kind of films. When they made those films celebrating terrorists, it was their opinion, perception about terrorism. It's not that they spent time with terrorists and made these films. They thought terrorists are suffering because India has taken their land and therefore they are good people who are oppressed by Indian government. They had no clue that Hindus lived. When they made these kind of movies, Government of India also gave them awards. International people gave them awards. They bought bungalows. They bought Mercedes. They are like celebrated great filmmakers. And they move freely wherever they want to go. They can go to Kashmir. They can go anywhere in the country. But when I made a film, okay, on the genocide of Hindus in Kashmir, a lot of people say, show me the facts. I have facts. My web series is coming next month called Kashmir Unreported. All the interviews I have done with newspapers and books and clippings and Government of India records, it's coming 8-part series, it's coming in July called Kashmir Unreported. So I am not afraid of anyone. But what I'm saying is, I don't have to give you anybody any fact. All I'm asking you, all those 7 lakh Hindus who used to live in Kashmir, why they are living outside Kashmir today? Why not even one Muslim is living outside Kashmir? This is the truth. But after I made this film, I have not been able to go out even one day with my children anywhere. Today I have to walk with security. The guy who's sitting here, I asked him to go there. My house, there are 6 people sitting with guns, with big AK-47s, what terrorists also use. I can't go out anywhere freely. I haven't gone to any shop. I can't go to restaurants. I can't go out. This is the price you have to pay in this country if you are fighting the war of dharma. Your life is threatened. You are abused. You are ridiculed. You have to feel bad about yourself for fighting for your brothers and sisters. Bharat is my land. And Bharat is the only land I have. Bharat is the only home I have. I have nowhere to go. Bharat used to be so huge. And today, if you honestly look at us, it's shrunk, it's become so small, it's not even 30% of what it used to be. It pains me. So I am fighting, I'm asserting for my rights. But the way our constitution is structured, the way our judicial system is structured, the way our politics is structured, in this country, the land of Hindus have to struggle for their own land and for their own identity.
One more question.
Hari Om, sir. It's an honor to meet you here today after watching a proper fangirl moment. My question is how all these movies that you've been making have been a really huge help for us. They've illuminated light on issues that we practically knew nothing about. But apart from these movies, where and how do we start our research from? Because these are subjects that we barely hear even whispers about. So where and how do we start our own journey about knowing more about such things?
See, I can tell you how I started my journey. I don't know, everybody has a different prarabdha. I realized that reading books doesn't tell me much about Bharat. So I started traveling. I travel, even till date, I travel 20 days in a month. I am traveling. Second thing is meeting small town middle class people and families. When you spend time with real people, people with heart, soul, heartbeat, thoughts, aspirations, breathing people, then you understand a society. Because if you want to consume the idea of Bharat only by reading books or listening to people, if you are going to see Bharat the way I see it, then you are window shopping. Then you are seeing the same dress from outside. Oh, it looks very good on mannequin, maybe it will look good on me also. But when you buy it and come back home, it doesn't look good on you. So you have to go first hand. And trust me, India to अच्छी country है ही, पर the people of Bharat are amazingly wonderful people. Any nook and corner, wherever you go, आप हल्का सा स्माइल करके एक अच्छी सी बात करो, you can make relationship for life. 10 years ago, before we end, about 2008 now, it's almost 15 years ago, when my father died, he was 95. I was the only one left in my family. So after me, the Agnihotri Vanshaj ends in our family. Now my son is there, sorry. But at that time. At that time. So I am the only one. And for 1 or 2 years, I felt very sad and depressed. And because in my family, my mother, my sister, and my father almost died in a gap of very 1 or 2 years. So I was very depressed. And then I started traveling in 2010. And today you won't believe me, I lost one mother, but I have millions of mothers in this country. In every single city and village of this country, by name, I know how many mothers I have. I can go to any house anytime. This is the beauty of this country. So outside when you'll read, they will focus only on the fault lines. What's wrong with you? अच्छा तुम्हारे यहाँ कास्ट इशू है, कास्ट का प्रॉब्लम है, तुम्हारे यहाँ विमेन एम्पावर्ड नहीं है, तुम्हारे यू विल सी, बट व्हेन यू विल गो कम्युनल पीपल ऑलवेज फाइटिंग कम्युनल प्रॉब्लम. बट आई हैव ट्रेवल्ड ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड. मैं सारी दुनिया की कंट्रीज में गया हूँ. Everywhere they talk about diversity, but I'll tell you what is the diversity of the Western world. Okay, there is one area which is for Chinese people, one area for Indian people, there is one where Korean people live. Everybody works in the office for many 30 years, 40 years, 50 years without knowing anything about each other. Right? Just because they smile and say, hey, how are you doing? Hello, I respect you, you are equal. All this lip service they think is diversity and equality. But in this country, every single day, just think, I mean, what I'm saying is right or wrong, I don't know. You think about yourself. Every single day, you interact physically, financially, socially, psychologically, and intellectually with people from different religions. On an average day, you will interact with some Christian or Sikh or Buddhist or an atheist or a Muslim, different castes, different financial structures, people from different linguistic backgrounds, from different regions. We interact so much with diversity. When you will travel, you will understand that people who say, without meaning it now, but actually India resides in its diversity.
Thank you so much, Vivek ji. I think to travel has been a very consistent theme suggested by speakers. So I hope after this conference, all of you travel a lot. I wholeheartedly thank you for being with us and for sharing your experiences. I will request Smarab ji and Yugapriya ji to take it from here.
I would like to thank Shri Vivek ji from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your schedule, for going past all the physical difficulties and still being here for us and to inspire all these youngsters to be great people, to be the best versions of themselves. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us your time. And I'd also like to say, as Vivek ji said, he's very connected with the Chinmaya mission, and that's evident from the way he speaks. And Vivek ji and Vikram Sampath ji were also there when we released the RRR textbooks that we were talking about earlier for schools. So they have always shown support for Chinmaya mission. They've always been a part of expanding Gurudev's vision and reaching out to youngsters. We thank you, sir, so much for your time, for everything that you do, and for bringing out the truth and helping us realize what the real history is of Bharat. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for everything, sir. Thank you.
For such a great speaker who spoke to us about the truth and about how we are supposed to be and his connection with Chinmaya Mission and made us feel like family, we need to felicitate him. So I call upon Swami Raghuvirananji, who is the spiritual mentor of Visakhapatnam and Upanagaram, to felicitate Vivek Agnihotri ji.
Bharat